Hey guys, how's it going? It is my different username here, and today we're going to be talking about the most unique handgun to come out of the German Empire and to be serviced into both World War I and World War II. Here we have the Luger P08 service pistol made out of Lego. So, the Luger P08, or what's also known as the Parabellum Pistola Modell von 1908, is the toggle lock action semi-automatic pistol designed by Georg Luger in 1898 as a reiteration to the Borchardt pistol originally designed by Hugo Borchardt back in 1893. And the Luger was eventually brought into service for the German Navy in 1904, but gets the name P08 from the latest developed model of the pistol produced by DWM in 1908 for the German Army. And this pistol has served the German military throughout both World War I and World War II, but eventually the entire Mauser production line for the Luger had officially ended for the Germans in 1943 and was later resurrected by the French in 1945 after the Second World War had ended. And the Luger is such an iconic pistol that it's also been heavily used in movies, TV shows, video games, and even sees casual use today from gun collectors, reproduction models and clones, and even reiterations of the Luger's own design. But enough about the real gun, let's talk a little bit about the Lego gun itself. And a few things I wanted to cover with the Luger was how from the start, I always wanted to build the gun to be 3 studs wide instead of just the normal 4 studs. Not only does it represent the realistic size of the Luger more, but also I just really didn't want to make another thick pistol again, like I did with the Lego Mauser and the DL44 I've made in the past. Because anybody who's actually seen those guns in real life know just how skinny they are compared to how I went about building my versions. So in this case, I just wanted to not make the same mistake again, which definitely presented a few challenges here and there, but was really worth it in the end. And with that, we can move on to the grip area of the Luger, which to me is probably one of the most difficult parts to build on this type of weapon just because of the unique angle shape it has. And a lot of people have come up with different designs for their Luger pistols, and when I was designing my own Luger, I couldn't find a design that I was happy with. So I went with one that I know looks good, and it is from Nick Brick and his golden Luger pistol build from Wolfenstein. Seriously, check out the video, it is so good. But anyway, my grip was fairly inspired by his design, mostly just the bottom portion anyway, but this grip looks amazing and feels really comfortable while holding in your hand. I even incorporated the frame of the pistol through the middle of the grip, which would be perfect if it wasn't for this one piece. But besides that, it is a really good design. So, moving forward, we have the trigger and trigger guard for the Luger, and it really was interesting to use this type of piece as the trigger, and is one of the first times I've ever used it, but man, it matches so well with the trigger that I'm honestly surprised this is my first time using it. And it does work, but unfortunately isn't affected by the safety switch in the back, which kinda sucks, but at least I'm still happy with the way this all looks and functions. The next important part to cover would definitely have to be the magazine for my Luger, which I'm sure a lot of people can agree is really, really small. I mean, these bullets are like the size of a .22. But there is a reason this is the way it is, and anybody who's ever tried to build their own Lego Luger will know this too. It's pretty difficult to try and make a full-size mag that's flush with the rest of the grip and also doesn't look like trash, so I made mine like this, which technically is supposed to be a smaller scale version of the original magazine design, so it can somewhat keep the same look of the mag and also work with my grip dimensions. And finally, moving up, we're at the most iconic part of the Luger, which is its toggle lock action system. It's such a cool and ingenious way of cycling the weapon, even for back in the day, that it almost looks bizarre to us right now. And my Lego version of this is pretty fragile to say the least, and it more or less just mimics the look of the toggle, but was pretty tricky to get the rubber band in place, which reminds me, if you end up buying the instructions for this build, link down below, I would recommend to anyone to get a rubber band that looks pretty close to the one that you see right here, because finding the specific rubber band to use for a system like this was kind of a struggle. Besides that, other details added to this build include the chamber area in the front and the dummy bullet on the inside to simulate a fully loaded magazine whenever you charge the gun. And the last thing to go over with this Luger are the iron sights, which are pretty unique to this style of weapon, especially the rear sights being attached to the whole toggle lock system and everything. And aiming these down feel really nice and really good in the hand. The only real issues I found on this when I was first building was how originally I actually had studs facing upward on my older design for the toggle, but now I have the middle section running completely upside down just so you can actually see the front post sight while aiming. And speaking of which, another issue that I found is that when aiming against my backdrop, you can see the terrible gap in my front sight, which I am extremely not happy with. But at the same time, it was really truly one of the best ways I can make the front sight work, especially with the muzzle brake design at the end. So, in conclusion, there is a lot of trial and error when it came to designing this gun, and several iterations of the gun were created with little parts here and there changing up to form into the Luger that we see now. And I am very proud of this build as far as all the subtle details go that you can see on both sides of the gun, and I'm really glad I took my time to really refine everything about this just so I can make it as great as possible. And technically, this wasn't even my first time building the Luger, but I tried my best to forget about that video. Anyway, we're not quite done yet. Many variants of the Luger were created, and one of them happens to be this. Here we have the Lego Artillery Luger. So, the Artillery Luger was introduced to the German military back in 1913 by Kaiser Wilhelm II, who personally approved of the pistol himself, and since then was issued to the artillery and aviation units of the German military to be used as a carbine during World War I. These units would encounter enemies at times, but never enough to be lugging around a full-size rifle constantly, so this was always meant to be a lightweight alternative to fight with, and was a lot more effective to use than just a simple sidearm. So, in a sense, when you think about it, this weapon was basically an early form of a personal defense weapon, which I find to be pretty cool. Starting off, we have the longer barrel for the Artillery Luger, and this barrel runs at a length of 200mm, where the normal barrel would run at about 100. And this barrel also features a new adjustable rear sight near the chamber area, and aiming these down feel really nice, and you get more picture profile while using these sights. And another change made to this model is actually in the toggle area, where they simply remove the original rear sight, making the whole system look really nice and smooth. Next up, we have the stock piece for the Artillery Luger, which helps in providing stabilization to the whole weapon system while in use, and it attaches to the small point on the back of the grip, which was pretty tricky to get to even somewhat work, but with the help of two attaching points, creates just enough stabilization for this not to break off, but is still pretty wobbly. Details on this piece include some holes along the left side, as well as the giant gaping hole for where the original holster for the gun would be attached for storage of the pistol when not in use, but I was way more interested in just building out the stock, more or less, instead of making the holster for the gun as well. And finally, we are at my favorite part of this build, which is also a throwback to an older LEGO model I've made in the past. Here we have the Trommel magazine, or the snail drum magazine, and this design was originally created back when I made my P08 out of LEGO for Battlefield 1, but the magazine has been slightly modified since the last time I built it, so it can be accepted into the Luger. And here we can see the 32-round snail drum magazine compared to just the standard 8-round magazine, and it's quite drastic to say the least. We have all the details on the drum mag, including the signature crooked joint area of the mag and the winding key on the back that can also spin as well. Inserting the magazine can also be a little tricky to do, but definitely completes the full look of the build. But I gotta say, this thing is really awkward to hold and use, so I'd much rather prefer using just the P08 version instead. It's just a lot more convenient to use, and is definitely one of my top favorite pistol builds I have ever made. And I really enjoyed making this pistol and carbine variant, and I can only really hope that you guys have all enjoyed as well. So guys, I'm going to keep this outro as brief as possible because not only am I being rushed for time, but I am currently dying. I'm not even sure if you can tell, but from the intro to the outro, I used to be a healthy person starting this video, and now I'm ending it as a sick person, and it is horrible. I really hope you guys can't tell the difference. But real quick guys, I need to thank you so much for 500,000 subscribers. Are you kidding me? 500,000 subscribers? Guys, I seriously cannot thank you enough for all the support that you have given me for the last few years on YouTube. It has been crazy. We've been blowing up so much these past few years, and I seriously cannot thank you guys enough for that. I would actually thank you guys probably until my dying breath, which will probably be in 5 minutes, but besides that, Subscribe if you guys want to see more historical weapons made later in the future, like, favorite, and comment if you have enjoyed, and, as always, thanks for watching and happy Valentine's Day.